Welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Bob, and we're continuing with our Bible study. We're in 1 John, and we're going on with chapter 3. As I said before, I chose 1 John as a book for the first study because it has so much of what a new believer needs to know about the love of God, about what a life with God means, and about what a destiny in God is about. So let's continue reading on. 1 John chapter 3 in the Passion Translation. Look with wonder at the depth of the Father's marvelous love that he has lavished on us. He has called us and made us his very own beloved children. The reason the world doesn't recognize who we are is that they didn't recognize him. Beloved, we are God's children right now. However, it is not yet apparent what we will become. But we do know that when it is finally made visible, we will be just like him. For will see him as he truly is, and all who focus their hope on him will always be purifying themselves, just as Jesus is pure. You see, Jesus is our prototype. He was the first among many. He came to this world to show us as human beings dedicated to God as beloved children, walking close with him, everything we can be and do in this life, and what will become, some of what will become in the next, and we'll talk about some of that in the future. But for right now, let's continue on with 1 John chapter 3. We're going to pick up once again at verse 4. Anyone who indulges in sin lives in moral anarchy, for the definition of sin is breaking God's law. And you know without a doubt that Jesus was revealed to eradicate sins, and there is no sin in him. Anyone who continues to live in union with him will not sin. But the one who continues sinning hasn't seen him with discernment or known him by intimate experience. In other words, if you want to sin less, move closer to Jesus. If you wish to have sin not have control in your life, let go of that life by grasping on to God. One of the terms used for looking on God and being renewed by that look at God is to behold him. Now, behold means looking deeply at him, getting to know him intimately. But one of the things that always is brought to my mind when I hear this is to behold him. Be and hold him close. Now let's continue on. We're going to pick up at verse 7. Delightfully loved children, don't let anyone divert you from this truth. The person who keeps doing what is right proves that he is righteous before God, even as the Messiah is righteous. Now, elsewhere in the Word, it does say that our righteousness comes from our relationship with Jesus. But the manifestation of that righteousness, how do I put this? I guess the best way to put it is this. God sees me from my destiny, but that's not where I am yet. So each day I am working out becoming who he sees me as. When God looks at me, he's not disappointed, and he doesn't see me as the one who's continuing to sin. He doesn't see me as the one who hasn't gotten it all right yet. He sees me as the righteousness that was purchased by Jesus. But to have that righteousness show through me is what the author is referring to here. To have it show through me, then I have to be righteous. In other words, do righteous things instead of sinning. Now, we'll continue on with verse 8. But the one who indulges in a sinful life is of the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason the Son of God was revealed was to undo and destroy the works of the devil. Everyone who is truly God's child will refuse to keep sinning, because God's seed remains within him, and he is unable to continue sinning because he has been fathered by God himself. What is the difference between those in the world and us as children of God? It's this: because God's seed is planted in me, my conscience pricks me every time I do something that falls outside of God's will. It pricks me because it wants me to know continuing on this path leads to bad things in my life, things that aren't healthy for me, things that will cause pain. And God doesn't want me to have that. He doesn't want me to continue living in sin, stumbling and falling and getting hurt, getting robbed from, stolen from, and led toward destruction by the enemy. He wants me to have life and have it more abundantly. But for that to happen, I have to listen to that prick in my conscience that tells me, don't go there. I have to bring every thought captive to God and say, is this a good thing for me to do or a bad thing for me to do? Not because he wants to force you into things, but because he's trying to show you a better way. All right, well, let's get back into this. All right, so we're going to start at verse 9. Everyone who is truly God's child will refuse to keep sinning because God's seed remains within him, and he is unable to continue sinning because he has been fathered by God himself. Here is how God's children can be clearly distinguished from the children of the evil one. Anyone who does not demonstrate righteousness and show love to fellow believers is not living with God as his source. The beautiful message you've heard right from the start is that we should walk in self-sacrificing love toward one another. We should not be like Cain, who yielded to the evil one and brutally murdered his own brother Abel. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. We will cover Genesis at a future time and actually talk about Cain and Abel. Picking up at verse 13. So don't be shocked, beloved brothers and sisters, if you experience the world's hatred. Yet we can be assured that we have been translated from spiritual death into spiritual life because we love the family of believers. A loveless life remains spiritually dead. Everyone who keeps hating a fellow believer is a murderer. And you know that no murderer has eternal life residing in him. This is how we have discovered love's reality. Jesus sacrificed his life for us. Because of this great love, we should be willing to lay down our lives for one another. If anyone sees a fellow believer in need and has means to help him, yet shows no pity and closes his heart against him, how is it even possible that God's love lives in him? You see, many times we have to understand that because laying down your life for another is a sign of being a believer, of being a follower of Jesus, it doesn't mean just sacrificially, as in wartime or jumping in front of a bullet for your spouse or something like that, although that is laying down your life for someone else in a very literal sense. But it is also not being so assured of what you have freedom to do in God that you do things that cause other people to stumble. Or not being so free in God to make your own choices that you ignore the needs somebody has near you, especially if they're a fellow believer. Sometimes the richest blessing in our life is when God allows us to help one of our fellow believers in a time of need. Sometimes we can be the greatest blessing when we let fellow believers know that we've come to a time of need in some area, so that they can be blessed by being able to exhibit generosity toward us. Love is very full and rich in God's kingdom. We're going to continue on now, and we're going to continue with verse 18. Beloved children, our love can't be an abstract theory we only talk about, but a way of life demonstrated through our loving deeds. We know that the truth lives within us because we demonstrate love in action, which will reassure our hearts in His presence. Love in action in our lives is about what we personally choose to do. It is not about getting other people to do things, although getting other people to come along to help us do things is good. But my love for someone else is only truly love if I'm demonstrating it to them, not doing it through someone else. While donating to causes and donating to others is a helpful thing, most of our love that we really truly exhibit is when we love others ourselves and not through another entity. So we'll continue on with verse 20. Whenever our hearts make us feel guilty and remind us of our failures, we know that God is much greater and more merciful than our conscience. And He knows everything there is to know about us. My delightfully loved friends, when our hearts don't condemn us, we have a bold freedom to speak face to face with God. And whatever we ask of Him, we receive, because we keep His commands. And by our beautiful intentions, we continue to do what brings pleasure to Him. So these are His commands, that we continually place our trust in the name of His Son, Jesus Christ, and that we keep loving one another just as He commanded us. For all who obey His commands find their lives joined in union with Him, and He lives and flourishes in them. We know and have proof that He constantly lives and flourishes in us by the Spirit that He has given us. And that is the end of chapter 3. He said to place our trust in the name of His Son, Jesus Christ, and that we keep loving one another as He commanded us. There were two commands about loving others that Jesus gave. The first, when He was talking with the Pharisees, He started with, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your strength. And then secondly, He said, love your neighbor as yourself. But Jesus gave one more command about love to believers. Love each other as I have loved you. In other words, to the rest of the world, we are to love them as we love ourselves, not more and not less, because we want to have healthy boundaries. But when it comes to loving other believers, people who have chosen to walk into the kingdom of God, we are to love as Jesus loved. A much higher standard, because He continually served and laid down His life for others, just as we should do for our fellow believers. We can discuss more about these things in the future. If you would please comment below or send an email at unclebobscoffeetime@gmail.com if you have questions you wish to discuss. or you can save that for one of the upcoming Bible Night live feeds I'm going to do. Also, if you would like, share, and subscribe to this video, even hit the notification bell if the platform you're watching on has that available, because it would really help to spread this message to more people. Because we all know we need more God in our lives, especially in the world we see around us today. Until the next time we get together, have a wonderful day and be God blessed.